I have come to the conclusion, and I think that there's a bunch of folks in the Tesla financial community that agree with me, that something has changed with regard to the Tesla stock. Something has happened with regard to the way people are now perceiving Tesla. It is starting to show up in the share price, and I want to discuss it fully and see what you all think about what I'm seeing. This is Randy Kirk. If you like this kind of content, please hit like, and then, of course, subscribe and notify. While I'm on my trip to Kauai, I have already recorded 12 interviews with some of your favorite folks like Herbert Ong and Brian Wang, and also Brian White. All of them rhyme. We could make a poem out of those three names. But anyway, hopefully you'll want to see those. If you do, then you want to hit subscribe and notify, and that'll remind you to see these videos. They are fantastic. I can tell you now, there's so much richness in what we've talked about in those 12 interviews, and those will all be coming up over the next 12 to 15 days. So, all right, let's, you could also Patreon if you would like to participate and be a producer helping out the show, then go down below. You can see the Patreon link and join my Patreon. All right. While this show is, while you're watching this, I'm probably on an airplane. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. All right, here we go. I have a suspicion that the basic investment narrative around Tesla might have shifted in the investment community. You've heard me talk about this before. If you follow this channel, Tesla is now, and it always has been, a story stock. This is a narrative stock. This is not something where you just look at the numbers or take a look at somebody's charts and decide where the stock is going. No, this is a story stock. There's never been a story like it. In the history of the stock market, there's never been a stock that has the potential that Tesla does. There's never been a stock that has grown as rapidly as Tesla has. There's never been a stock that has had as charismatic a leader as Elon Musk is at this point in his career, in terms of just the fact that he's out there amongst us, willing to sit down with us, willing to talk to us on Twitter. I mean, there's nothing else like this stock. So there's a narrative, and the narrative shifts. And the narrative had shifted last year because there was some things going on, like the business of Elon buying Twitter, selling shares of stock in order to buy Twitter, lowering the prices on a lot of the cars to where the margins were going down, being active at Twitter, and therefore people thinking he was not being active at Tesla. So there was all of these stories, and what do those stories create? Those stories created a sense of uncertainty. They created a sense of additional risk. The company is pretty much risk-free when you look at the $23 billion in the bank and zero debt. That's a pretty risk-free company. A company that's growing 35, 40, 50% per year, year after year, and has consistently done that. A company that has free cash flow so great, in addition to the money they've been putting in the bank account, that they can build factory after factory after factory every single year. That's a pretty risk-free company. But then you start throwing in these kind of esoteric risks, not easy to get your hands around, and you do it in a risk-off environment. So the stock market has been risk-off for at least a year now. And when there's a risk-off environment and people are more inclined to put their money in cash, money market certificates, really, really solid, food stocks and things of that nature, that's a really bad time for a growth company like Tesla to also have a lot of risk and uncertainty in the minds of the investment community. This is a problem. And this problem, combined with the fact that all growth stocks dropped dramatically last year, now you've got an absolute recipe for stock market pricing disaster. So what's changed? All right, let's take a look at what Gary Black had to say. He said, why has Tesla investor sentiment improved so much this week? This is something I've been talking about for several days. He reports this today. So number one, Gary Black says that the view that Tesla auto gross margins will likely bottom in the second quarter. He says Elon didn't offer his usual rhetoric of Tesla demand is infinite at lower prices. He didn't continue that conversation. Plus, the prices have been going up recently, not down. And so Gary Black believes that that story, that narrative, that negative narrative is off the table to some degree at this point. Now, that could go back on the table if they drop the prices a bunch again. But for now, that narrative is off the table. That negative is subdued. Number two, Elon is refocused on Tesla, with Linda now being in charge of Twitter. So he has time. Well, she's not there yet, but she will be. So he can concentrate on Tesla. Number three, 2 next generation $25,000 to $30,000 launches in late 2024, total demand 5 million units. So if folks are looking forward, it's one thing to look forward to a robot or to FSD that has been promised and not delivered yet, or Dojo as a service, or some of these things that it's hard to put a number on. I would think people could put a number on energy by now, but I don't think they are yet. Gary Black is, but I think a lot of people are not putting anywhere close to the number that energy is going to provide, energy storage. But at this point, yes, they're building the factory in Texas. They've shown their ability to build the cars. They've shown what they're going to do in technology in order to make these less expensive cars. So there's more meat on those bones. So he believes that that is causing a change in sentiment. Number four, the Cybertruck is on track for fourth quarter first deliveries, showing maybe 250,000 units in 2024. Again, something of substance, reconfirmed that it's going to happen this year. Even though Elon played down a little bit how hard it was going to be to ramp it, and it's a brand new concept, and maybe there would only be a $250,000 TAM on this one per year. Maybe it'll be 500,000. Well, of course, the Tesla community believes it'll be a lot more than that, but we'll see. Time will tell. But at least there is a reality to it, and that could be changing the narrative. Then the Tesla will start advertising. So this accelerates EV adoption. The company becomes less reliant on price cuts. It would prove out the concept that the advertising is more effective at providing the take up of this extra 600,000 Model Ys next year, rather than lowering the prices in order to pick up those 600,000 Model Ys. So we'll find out. We'll find out if a advertising campaign will achieve what Gary Black and others have said it will achieve, or whether the price cutting was really the smart move. I can see it both ways. I'm a marketing guy, as most of you know. That's what I've done my whole life. I can see both ends of that stick. And believe me, I'm thrilled that they're going to do advertising. When he said he would, I laughed for a solid minute, and I was all by myself in the room. All right, so finally, number 6, investors now viewing Tesla as the next AI play. Well, you've got the Tesla bot, you've got the FSD. So you're talking about these things. The bot itself, and we'll talk about this at length in a minute, the bot on that TAM could be $5 to $10 trillion. The TAM can be 5 to 10 trillion units. He's not even talking about dollars. Elon Musk says it could be 9 billion units. Well, that's a lot more than $10 trillion. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. But he's saying, okay, the robot might be sexy enough, and we'll talk about that in a second. So on my list, we've already talked about, therefore, risk is reduced. A lot of elements there where the risk is reduced. Uncertainty has been also reduced. The price increases alone add $1 billion to profit next year if they stay flat for the rest of the year. Could be going up even more, which could add more billions to profits in 2023. There's a reality now, Gary doesn't mention this, but I think there's a reality that almost everybody understands at this point, that there's going to be way more than 2 million cars sold this year. I'm saying 2.2, but certainly 2 million is in the bag, and it's going to be more than that. The run rate right now is already 2 million. All right, number 5, advertising decision, I already mentioned that. Energy is becoming more and more real. He didn't put that in his list. I think he should put that in his list. There's a reality now to the energy story. You can start to put it into your spreadsheet. So I think that's a factor that he's not taking into consideration, but I really believe it's important. Elon keeps repeating over and over again how the company's recession-proof. I've mentioned for months how Tesla is done exactly the right thing with regard to a recession. You want to get your cash, you want to maximize your cash, you want to eliminate your debt, and you want to have yourself in a position to have pricing power. They've done all three. They are positioned perfectly for a recession. And then when that company comes out of recession, the competition is dead meat. There's nothing that can be done. They're just in such trouble because they weren't prepared for the recession. Then number 10, Elon talking about the economic rebound in early 2024 and how Tesla is positioned. Once again, I think most people believe that times will be tough between now and March, April, May of 2024, and then things will start to pick up again. I think that's probably a general understanding of what's going to happen. Well, when does the market move? The market moves 6 months ahead of that. So we could be looking at the market beginning to go back into bull territory by September, October. And in this particular case, a rising ocean does lift all boats, and Tesla will take advantage. And they've had a delta of about 3 to 4 on the market. So who knows what could happen when the market starts going up. And then number 11, he didn't mention this one either, multiple reports of the auto fleet being the oldest in history, pent-up demand, and unexpectedly good sales of automobiles right now. So that's all good news, not only going into the recession that we're seeing pent-up demand as well as good sales, but also coming out of the recession, the car fleet will maybe even be older and create more pent-up demand. All right. I have another guy here. Oh, I'm sorry. Last thing was a very upbeat shareholder meeting. The folks who watched it were pretty thrilled with the results. Hardly anybody had anything negative to say. Another fellow on Twitter, he calls himself Strength Plan. He's Twitter at Strength Plan. He tweets, if Tesla breaks 177, we are headed to 250 to 275 by the end of the year. Tesla might have already bottomed and be to the moon by the end of the year. So that's what he says. Well, again, if you've been watching my show for the last week, you know that I've said there's the appearance that we could be starting into this range, getting out of this range, breaking out of the range. The stock has been moving better than the market. The market was down on Friday, yesterday, and Tesla was up. This has happened a couple of times over the last week. The only thing that slowed down Tesla all week long was the fears on Friday that Wall Street Journal, when they came out, said, well, maybe Elon's leaving. Maybe he's going to take a lesser role. Maybe there'll be a new CEO at Tesla. People hated that, and the stock went down. Other than that, the stock has been outperforming all week. So that would be another indication that we might be going into a breakout situation where we're going to get past these kinds of totally following the risky growth stocks rather than following the blue chips or following at least the NASDAQ, but actually outperforming the NASDAQ. That is becoming more and more likely. I think the real breakout is at 214. It'll be interesting to see if we can get to 214 and keep going. I certainly think it's in the cards. How does the optimists fit into the story even more importantly? Well, you know, most stock pickers, most people that want to buy a particular stock, they're looking for zero or the lowest possible downside risk with the greatest possible outsized, amazing potential gains. Well, right now, Tesla has almost no downside risk. Some of those esoteric risks have now been removed. So now you have a company with almost no downside risk, and the potential gains from FSD and Optimus are earth-shaking. And with ChatGPT and all the rest of that just having broken through so rapidly, all of a sudden, folks can begin to go, wait a minute, what happens if that happens with FSD? We've been waiting a long time, but it's the same kind of deal. It's the same kind of AI thing. So if FSD breaks through, or if the robots actually start shipping later this year, which is my prediction, or first quarter of next year, and everybody saw those robots. If anybody's interested in Tesla at all, they've seen the video of those robots. You can't look at those robots and not think they could be ready in weeks to be able to be sent out into factories and start working. The numbers, the volume, the profits are unimaginable. There's nothing like it that's ever been seen in history before. So you got massive upside potential and zero downside risk. Who wouldn't want to have a stock like that? This is not investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for your entertainment value only, and do your own homework. But it seems to me that Tesla is now poised for a major breakout. Will it happen this month? Will it continue to slowly inch up? And we'll keep seeing it go back into the 200s, then break the 214 range, and then maybe, like he says, go to 277. And you know, my position all this year has been, we're going to 300 in the third quarter. By the end of the third quarter, we're going to 300, and then we'll break through 300 and start heading towards 400. And that should happen, could happen by the end of the year if the stock market is doing very well, and it may happen in the first quarter of next year if we have to wait for some of the other things to happen, like the reviews of the Cybertruck and for the reveal of the Optimus, and for potentially the reveal of Dojo and FSD to actually be, you can do it from your back seat now. There's a lot of potential things that could happen between now and the fourth quarter that would make 400 seem like, are you kidding? Only 400? All right. So that's all I got for you today. I hope this has been interesting. If it has, hit like. If you'd like to make sure that you see all of my buddies on these interviews coming up, make sure that you hit subscribe and notify, and then could really use the help on Patreon. And having said all that, it's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.